Good morning and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from a top secret location just outside of Austin, Texas. How is everybody today? It is Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. And it is that day where we participate in the hallmark ritual, the gathering of cards, candy, chocolates, little tiny hearts with little tiny messages imprinted on them that you pass off to your sweetheart. Remember those days back in school where you have those little tiny crappy hearts with all the little messages on them? It was almost like a status thing, being able to collect a number of Valentines. I always felt supremely let down on Valentine's Day, though, when I was a kid. I really have to say, they all seemed a trite too impersonal for my taste. Maybe that's because it was the month, or is the month of Aquarius, and I have Chiron in Aquarius in my third house. So maybe on Valentine's Day, I'd be experiencing the Chironic wound of not feeling special enough. Pity me, poor me. Speaking of Aquarius, tomorrow we've got a lunar eclipse happening. And that's taking place as pretty much the companion eclipse of the solar eclipse, which took place last August. Because that solar eclipse took place at 28 Leo, and tomorrow's eclipse takes place at 24 Aquarius. So we have the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine. The alchemical marriage, as it were. It'll be a very interesting eclipse. If you look back on what happened during that eclipse phase in August of last year, for some people, again, they experienced a fair amount of upheaval because sometimes that's the nature of eclipses. I've seen it. Other people, not so much. So we can look at where the eclipse is going to show up in your chart and find out where that locality is. First house, second house, third house, fourth house. And you can begin to make some assessments as to how the eclipse might actually get played out. So for some of you, if it's in the seventh house of relationships, it might be a revelatory time. Maybe a past wound can be healed over as the past is occluded. And some Aquarian energy, which is much more detached, has a lot more perspective, can come into play. Perhaps. If it's in the eighth house, wow, that's a really interesting eclipse with moon and Aquarius in the eighth house. Something hidden might emerge. However, if it does, you're probably able to handle it a bit better. Again, because of the more detached and impersonal nature of the Aquarian moon. Now, on the other hand, if you suffer or if you are cool by temperament in general, and the eclipsed Aquarian moon comes into play, it might flip your cool temperament. And all of a sudden, the heat coming from the opposite sign, Leo, can come into play. So it'll be, at the very least, a very interesting 72 hours. We're kind of in the eclipse phase right now, pre-eclipse, and then we'll be in post-eclipse after tomorrow. Just some interesting aspects or interesting transit to note. Speaking of Aquarians, and speaking of eclipses and revelations, I got to talk about Gregg Popovich. Now, some of you may have heard me talk about Gregg Popovich before. And some of you may not have. And the some of you that may have may be asking yourself, who the hell is Gregg Popovich? Gregg Popovich is the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. He's been the coach for the San Antonio Spurs for a very long time. Gregg Popovich happens to be an Aquarian. Now, up until Donald Trump got elected president, Gregg Popovich had been mostly known for his gruff, off-putting and slightly eccentric post-game press conferences or halftime interviews with young female reporters looking to get a scoop on the Spurs as they head into the locker room for the second half. So Popovich's interviewing style could be considered quirky, eccentric, demeaning, cold, totalitarian. Everybody's loved his intelligence. He's such a smart coach. And in their estimation, his honesty. I've always viewed Gregg Popovich as a prick. He's a total prick. Now, ever since Donald Trump's been elected, Gregg Popovich has decided that he's not only going to take on Donald Trump, but he's going to take on America, and specifically white America. And now that we're firmly into Black History Month, we're 14 days in, and as you have noticed that a couple of key dates occurred over the 12th and the 13th in history. First of all, on the 12th, the NAACP was formed. And on the 13th, the National Black Baseball League started play, or was formed. So those are two key dates. I'm sure there's going to be more that we're going to come across here over the course of the next few weeks. Look, I don't begrudge Black History Month. I think, why not? Why not? Let's get into a specific group of people, and let's get into their culture, and let's celebrate it. I don't have a problem with that. I have no problem with that at all. Here's what I'd love to do, being the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Libra in the 11th house, which gives me a kind of balanced and Aquarian point of view. I say we extend that to as many groups as possible. I really do. I really do. We should have, well, I guess we wouldn't call it Yellow History Month. That would be a bit demeaning. Although we can say Black History Month, we can't say Yellow History Month. And we can't say Brown History Month either. Now, we might get away with Red History Month. Possibly. Pink History Month, well, clearly there would be a segment of our society that would love that. However, if it was celebrated in, well, let's say, Aries, the month of Aries, they may take strongly to the fact that pink is a few shades less than red. And they may say to themselves, well, you have always personified us as pink. We don't want to be pink anymore because pink is colorist. You're colorizing us. So instead of being pink and instead of being rainbows, what we want to be known as is white. And like, would people be scratching their heads? What? Yes, the LGBTQ, ZFR, AWPN community as a rejection of our pink classification and stereotype. We want to be known as white. So therefore, we want to celebrate our culture, our diversity as White History Month. Wouldn't that throw a monkey wrench in everything? I mean, it is Aquarius, so I've got to turn things upside down. But we can't get, there's only one group of people, really, that can get away with the sort of Black History Month thing. Maybe red. Maybe the Native American and indigenous people from this country could get away with Red History Month. Maybe they could do that. It's about everybody else, I don't think it's going to happen. But given the fact that there is a Black History Month, why can't other groups have their own month? I think it's only fair. I think it's only fair. But we'll have to change the designation. Because, again, Yellow History Month probably is not going to sound very good. You know? But there's 11 more months. I'm sure we could fill that with 11 more groups. I don't think it would be that impossible. But then there's going to be other groups going to be left out. What do we do with them? How do we handle that? We might have to break it down. You know, if we're going to fit everybody in, we might have to break it down into bi-monthly segments. And then what happens after that? Well, there's even more groups. I mean, we've seen this with gender, right? And there's about 90 different types of gender that are out there now. So there's got to be at least maybe 25 or 30 groups. What about I mean, we can just get real fractal with this. Like Slovakian History Month. How are we going to squeeze that in? I mean, I think we might have to go weekly now. We might have to have 52 separate weeks or 52 separate editions of celebrating a group. Now, here's the big question. If that's the case, and we want to be completely diverse and honor as many groups as possible, I mean, how would certain groups, like for instance, because I really think there's only one group that celebrates a history month. I mean, I don't even think like, Latino Americans, Spanish Americans, Hispanic Americans, they don't get a month. They get a day, right? They get one day. And it's not even the right day. It's an arbitrary day. Their independence is like completely on a different day. That's really National Margarita and Nacho Day. But anyway, so there's one group that has a month dedicated to it. How would they feel if they had to give up 3 weeks and still keep a week of their month while 51 other groups can then celebrate their uniqueness? Boy, I think there's trouble. There's a storm on the horizon. But let's get back to Gregg Popovich for a second. Gregg Popovich has come right out and denounced Donald Trump. Denounced him as being ignorant, racist. You name it, he's got all the left-leaning talking points. And now, in honor of Black History Month, Gregg Popovich has said that it's important, and he's done this before. He's talked about white privilege and on and on and on and on and on, right? So Gregg Popovich has made it very clear, very clear that he's an advocate of civil rights, and he's an advocate of making sure that people that are connected to theoretically his race, his culture, his genetic strain, that they get bitch slapped as often as possible to remind them just how lucky and how fortunate we are. Excuse me. Cheese omelet. So, that said, his most recent statement is about how America is and always has been racist. Okay. Well, if Gregg Popovich was really concerned about racism, really concerned, if he really wanted to personify his social and moral and philosophical position on this thing, I think Gregg Popovich should step down as coach of the San Antonio Spurs. I think he should step down. And I think he should appoint somebody from his coaching staff who's African American to actually coach the Spurs. Now, he could do this because, guess what? Gregg Popovich is also the president of the Spurs. He holds two positions. He holds the most powerful position as a coach. He holds the most powerful position as the president of the team. So, as president of the team, he can fire himself and step down and still remain president. Now, I took the time to look at Gregg Popovich's coaching staff. He's got roughly 5 or 6 assistants. And I can tell you that out of those, well, here, let's just make this clear. I don't want to generalize it. This is too important to generalize. Okay, too important. Let me go back here to San Antonio Spurs. Because this is going to be, what I'm going to prove to you here and share with you here is that Gregg Popovich embodies the absolute and utter hypocrisy of the left. It sounds great, right? Oh, he's out there. Look at him. Look at him. He's He's banging the drum for civil rights. Let's take a look at Gregg Popovich's coaching staff. Well, first of all, you have Gregg Popovich, who's been coaching there for 22 years. Next, you have Will Hardy. Will Hardy. Can you guess what Will Hardy is? Will Hardy's a white boy. He's been on the staff for 2 years. Okay, white boy. Next in line of the coaching staff, actually he's been there for 3 years, James Borrego. James Borrego. Any hints or guesses as to what James Borrego might be? He's a white boy. How about the next person down here on this list? She's been there. Hey, diversity. He is practicing some diversity here. Becky Hammon, who is a very successful women's basketball player. Have you looked at Becky Hammon's picture, profile? She's a white girl. Oh, look at this. He has Ettore Messina. And Ettore Messina was kind of a famous coach over in Italy. Well, he may have a little, melanation going on in his background, in his history. But by and large, Ettore Messina matches the profile of being a European white boy. And then next on the list is Chip England. Chip England. Do you really have to do any kind of significant algorithm in your head to figure out what Chip England might be? Yes, indeed. If you guessed white boy, you were right. Finally, we have Ime Udoka, who happens to be from Nigeria. Ime Udoka is the only, and this is true because he is African and he was born in Nigeria, and he is an American. He is the only African American on Gregg Popovich's staff. So here Gregg Popovich is moaning and groaning and bitching and hollering about white privilege and racism in white America, and the guy only has one African American coach on his staff. Okay? One African American coach on the staff. Period. End of story. This is the epitome, the absolute epitome of the hypocrisy that is practiced by the progressives and the left. And I'm sorry, I'm calling it out. Look, the right has their own version of hypocrisy. We talked about that about a week ago. Love to save the babies at Planned Parenthood. Love to blow up the babies in other countries. It's okay. That's a weird level of hypocrisy that cannot be really measured out. I mean, that's an abstraction. So there's plenty of hypocrisy on both sides. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy on the left. Gregg Popovich, the great social justice warrior, Mr. Aquarian, the contrarian, has one African American assistant on his staff. Where's the love, Greg? It's Valentine's Day. At least your protege, Steve Kerr, who has father, Malcolm Kerr, gunned down over in Beirut. And Steve Kerr should look into that, by the way, if he hasn't. At least Steve Kerr has African Americans, black Americans on his coaching staff. Steve Kerr is actually walking the talk. Because Steve Kerr is just as politically active in his own way as Gregg Popovich. You know what Steve Kerr did the other night? He let his team coach. He let his team coach the team. He stepped out of the way and let his players coach. I'd love to see Gregg Popovich do that. Mr. Control Freak. I know we're supposed to be loving today. It's Valentine's Day. Should I send love to Gregg Popovich? No, I'm not going to send love to Gregg Popovich. This is tough love. This is tough love Valentine's Day, Greg. Take a look at yourself. Better yet, take a look at your coaching staff. Oh, then what is he going to say if this is pointed out? Well, these people have shown themselves to be the best coaches possible, that they have arrived here on their merits. Oh, you think he wants to go down that path? That they're the best possible staff that he could hire? So that means that 90% of his staff, let's take out the Italian guy, 80% of his staff was better than any other African American or Black American coach that he could hire. That's making a pretty bold statement. And if that is true, then wouldn't the meritocracy approach be a broadband, cross-platform approach to how we work within society in general? Because if that's the case, Greg, you're making a very strong point, an extremely strong point for that position by the hiring of your staff. And these people have been there for quite a while. Chip England has been there for 13 years. 13 years. Will Hardy, the Hardy boy, he's the newest addition. He's been there for only 2 years. Oh boy, I just wanted to point that out. And I know it's sports, but look, Gregg Popovich has crossed the line. He's put himself into the socio-political arena. It has to be Mr. Aquarian Contrarian. Boy, he's really contrary, isn't he? He's out here, having his balled up fist in the air, and he's punching the air for social justice and equal rights, and really taking as much time and space as he wants to remind us that we're privileged and we're racist and we should hate each other or hate ourselves. And the contrary part is, look at his staff. Boy, is that contrary or what? Gregg Popovich, look in the mirror, look at your staff. You got questions to answer, and they should be asked. They should be asked by these quote-unquote sports pundits. Right? Turn the heat back on Gregg Popovich. Let's see how he handles that question. I'm just here to point out the hypocrisy. That's part of my Aquarian nature. Speaking of strange, transitioning here, this is a new story. This is an interesting. We're going to go through a couple different things today. We're going to get into this story. We're going to do a little time tunnel. They're going to come out with what's happening with California. So this is from Soren. That's Soren Dreyer, Dreier, and it's a story. Soren Dreyer takes a lot of content, scrapes it from other sources, puts it on his site, but he does it in a good way. This is from ABC 15. And this was posted just yesterday. This is about an Arizona woman who wakes up with a British accent. I'm going to read you the story. It's pretty wild. Imagine going to sleep and waking up sounding British. It's a real thing, and it happened to a Valley woman who has never even left the country. Everybody only sees or hears Mary Poppins, said Michelle Myers, a mom of 7 who lives in Buckeye. Myers is a former Texas beauty queen who has never even left the United States. Okay, let's just stop that sentence right there. If she's, I'm making a broad generalization, but we've seen this pattern before. If she's in the beauty queen circuit, probably a pretty good chance that Michelle Myers might have been traumatized. I'm not saying that's happened, but this is a way for us to look at the mystery of another accent showing up. Where have we seen this before? We saw it with Britney Spears. You remember when Britney Spears started talking like an English woman in an interview? Like, where the hell did that come from? Where did that come from? Lindsay Lohan has done the same thing. And what do we know about Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears? Yeah, they've been hacked. Let me continue to to go on here. 3 times in the past 7 years, Myers has gone to sleep with blinding headaches. Only to wake up with a different accent. The first time, it was Irish. The second time was Australian. Both incidents lasted about a week, but 2 years ago, she went down with a crippling headache and woke up with a British accent she's had ever since. They send in the psychiatrist at the hospital and make sure you're not a loon, said Myers. According to experts, she's not crazy and not faking it. She's been diagnosed with foreign accent syndrome. Did you know there was such a thing called foreign accent syndrome? It's an extremely rare condition that usually accompanies a stroke, neurological damage, or other underlying medical issues. When I was a little girl, I used to always get to go to my mom and say, "My bones hurt," said Myers. She's been to the hospital more times than she can count, and the stack of medical records she keeps in the house says she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. According to the Mayo Clinic, it's a disease that causes easy bruising, rupturing blood vessels, and painful joints that are overly elastic to the point of easily dislocating. Best her doctors can tell, it also turned her British. There's something deeper going on here. That's my sense. Let me just continue this here. Hold on. Okay. Oh, this is funny. Let's see. According to the Mayo Clinic, blah 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 blah. Looking back at how she used to be, looking at how she used to be is difficult. Myers says she misses the way she said she used to say her kids' names. I'm sad, she said, watching an old video of her speaking normally. I feel like a different person. The person I am now has been through so much compared to this person. But her outlook is positive. She loves spending time with her 7 kids, listening to them sing and play instruments. She also likes painting, writing, and motivating people. Above all, she wants people to take herself seriously. Well, she wants people to take her seriously. Some people think it's physiological. Others think it's psychological. People like me, we don't care which one it is. We just really want to be taken seriously. If it's something that's going to hurt me, and if it is something that's going to hurt me, help me. This is a bizarre disorder. Now, what's interesting is Miss Myers is African American. So she's waking up speaking ostensibly these Northern European accents, speaking Irish, speaking Australian, and speaking English. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. It almost feels like she might be taking on the sins of Gregg Popovich. You know? That's what it feels like. There's something interdimensional, multidimensional going on here. It's a fascinating story. She should get an agent. That's what I think. She should get an agent. So, why don't we take a little trip back in time? Shall we? Shall we do that? Shall we enter into the Well, welcome to history. Welcome to a journey, a visitation to the past. So let's look at what's gone on February 14th throughout history. Some interesting events, much more interesting than February 13th, which was kind of a flat line in global history. In 1842, Charles the Bald and Louis the German swore the oaths of Strasbourg in the French and German languages. So this is where the Germans sat down and the French sat down. They got together and they had some grog. And they said, let's lay down the arms. But I love these names. Charles the Bald, Louis the German. Who did we have the other day? Charles the Fat. I think we should all kind of revisit these monikers. It could be a new trend. Again, I'm Robert the Paunchy. That's my name. So, here's a funny name story. A little bit of a circuitous sort of. We're taking the frontage road for a while, for at least the next 2 minutes or 3. So a long time ago, well, it wasn't. I guess it was long. 2001, I went to Dom and Hor, this very interesting community in northern Italy. And I'd heard a lot of stories about it. Some friends had gone. I really wanted to go. I managed to get there. So I got the tour. I got the Dom and Hor tour. And the woman who took me on the tour was this really stunning Italian woman. It was like, wow. I think she was probably the hottest woman in Dom and Hor. Although I didn't see all the women in Dom and Hor, I probably didn't need to see too many more. And clearly, she's there giving tours. She's recruiting, right? So, I mean, maybe she was just the most qualified. Anyway, she's taking me on the tour. And I'm thinking, and I've always loved the idea of alternative communities. Always loved that idea. Went to Van Horn, went to Highwind, went to Sirius. So now I'm at Dom and Hor. And one of the things that they have at Dom and Hor is you have to take on an animal name. You have to have an animal name at Dom and Hor. And I'm thinking, well, God, I'm not going to go now. I probably would go maybe, if I went to this place maybe about 10, 15 years from now, maybe 20 years from now. And I thought to myself, well, 20 years from now, all the good animal names are going to be taken. So I asked her, I said, hey, look, is there any way I could put a down payment on a name? So that when I get here, I actually have a good animal name. Like, I didn't want to be known as Millipede. Or I didn't want to be known as Bark Beetle. Because that's probably all that's going to be left by the time I got there. And of course, the guy who started Dom and Hor, he was a very interesting character. He was Falco. And like lion and tiger and leopard and snow wolf. I mean, they're probably all gone. So I laid that out to her. And I did, partially because I was flirting with her. But she said, no, I couldn't put a down payment on a name. All right, what else do we have here? 1349, several hundred Jews are burned to death by mobs, while the remaining Jews are forcibly removed from Strasbourg. Wow, bad day. See, in 842, Charles the Bald and Louis the German, they swore the oath of Strasbourg. And then in 1349, roughly 507 years later, right? Is that right? 1349, 840? No, more than that. Way more than that. No, I guess it's 547. I think it is. This off the top of my head. Again, in Strasbourg. They had a very bad day for the Jewish people in Strasbourg in 1349. I guess Valentine's Day hadn't really been around yet. The spirit of love did not permeate February 14th, 1349. Richard II of England died, and he died 51 years later from starvation in Pontefract Castle on the orders of Henry Bolingbroke. 1530, Spanish conquistadors led by Nuno de Guzman overthrow and execute Tangak Swan II, the last independent monarch of the Tarascan states in present-day central Mexico. Not a lot of love there for Tangak Swan II. In 1556, Thomas Cranmer is declared a heretic. Okay. James Cook, killed by natives near Kealakekua on the island of Hawaii. Valentine's Day is pretty bloody. We've got hundreds of Jews being burned to death in 1349. The natives revolt, killed James Cook in 1779. Wow. What else do we have here? Texas is linked by telegraph to the rest of the United States with the completion of a connection between New Orleans and Marshall, Texas. Very significant. It's an Aquarian event, right? The waves, the airwaves, the electrical waves, language being passed through lines. Boy, the telegraph really changed everything. That was a big deal. It's not much of a big deal now, but it was as big a deal as the internet. Oregon is admitted as the 33rd state. Happy birthday, Oregon. Today is your birthday. And we've had a love affair with you ever since. I think it's become a love-hate affair lately. But love-hate is better than just hate or maybe even just love. Here's another Aquarian event. Alexander Graham Bell applies for a patent for the telephone, as does Elisha Gray. Two people applying for a patent for the telephone on the same day. Voting machines were approved by the U.S. Congress for the first time in 1899. How about that? Another state was admitted in 1912. That state being Arizona. Arizona and Oregon, you share a common day. Today is Arizona's birthday as well as Oregon's birthday. Should be a love affair happening on Valentine's Day between Arizona and Oregon. How about that? Another bloody event took place in 1929. Of course, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 7 people, 6 of them gangster rivals of Al Capone's gang, are murdered in Chicago. The League of Women Voters, going back 4 years, was founded in Chicago. How about that? Chicago is such a progressive city. They've always been on the tip of progressive politics and ideas. IBM went through a name and a brand change. IBM was originally called the Computing Tabulating Recording Company. That's a little wordy. They changed their name to International Business Machines back in 1924. How about that? That's a very Aquarian kind of day, don't you think? Let's see. The Bank of England was nationalized in 1946. And I'm sure that the Rothschilds had their fingerprints all over that one. Anything else interesting? In 1989, Union Carbide agreed to pay $470 million to the Indian government for damages it caused in the 1984 Bhopal disaster. $470 million doesn't seem like very much now, does it? And finally, in 2005, a group of college students launched a video sharing website on the internet. And that video sharing website is YouTube. YouTube. So happy birthday, YouTube 2005, a true Aquarian medium on a true Aquarian birthday. I believe, is it Chad Hartley? Isn't Chad Hartley the guy that started YouTube? I think it was. No, it was Chad something. There you go. There's your trip backwards into time. In order for us to get current again, we're going to have to activate the time tunnel technology. Okay, here we are, back in the present. All right, I think that's going to do it for today. Hey, tomorrow we're going to get into chemtrails, and we're going to look at what's happening with California again. Don't miss that. I'm going to pretty much devote most of tomorrow's show to chemtrails and weather manipulation. So on this day, Valentine's Day, do your best to love yourself and to love the God within you and each and every one out there, even Gregg Popovich. Greg, I know we've had some differences here today, and I know I've done my best to share a little tough love with you, but brother, in the spirit of the one and all, through the one and all, I love you.